I was sitting in my small bedroom staring at the acceptance letter from the University of Illinois lying on my desk. 4 years of hard work, late nights, studying, maintaining a 3.9 GPA, volunteering at the local library, all of it had led to this moment. I had earned a scholarship that covered 50% of my tuition. The rest, about $30,000 for my first year, would come from the college fund my parents had been saving since I was born. At least, that is what they had always promised me. But something felt off when they called an emergency family meeting 1 week before I was supposed to leave. What I did not know was that dinner would change everything. Before I tell you how my entire future nearly crumbled in one conversation, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. If you have ever felt like family put someone else first, hit that like button. And subscribe, because what happened next taught me the hardest lesson about independence. Now let me take you back to that August evening. I grew up in a small town in the Midwest, the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, and dreams felt both possible and impossibly far away at the same time. My father worked at the local automotive plant, putting in long shifts to keep our family afloat. My mother was an accountant for a small business downtown. We were solidly middle class, nothing fancy, but comfortable enough. I had an older brother named Derek, 4 years older than me, and from the day he could walk, he was the golden child. Derek was tall, charismatic, the kind of guy who could walk into a room and command attention without even trying. He had this confidence that made people believe in him even when maybe they should not have. My parents loved to brag about him to the neighbors, to anyone who would listen, really. Derek was going to be somebody, they would say. Derek was going to make the family proud. I was different. I was quieter, more reserved. I liked reading, spending hours in the library, getting lost in books about science and mathematics. I was good at school, really good, but I did not have that spark Derek had. I did not light up rooms. I just worked hard, kept my head down, and tried to make my parents proud in my own way. But it always felt like I was running a race where Derek had a 50-yard head start, and I was just trying to catch up. Throughout my 4 years of high school, I poured everything into my education. I joined the robotics club, spent weekends volunteering, and maintained nearly perfect grades. When I applied to the University of Illinois for computer science, it felt like I was finally carving out my own path. The day I got my acceptance letter, along with a scholarship covering half my tuition, I felt this rush of pride. I had done it. I had earned this. My parents had always told me not to worry about the money that they had been saving for my education since I was born. That college fund was mine, they said. It was my future, secured and waiting. That summer before college, I worked part-time at a grocery store, saving up money for personal expenses. I bought a new comforter for my dorm room, a desk lamp, a sturdy backpack. I was ready. I was excited. I trusted that my family would support me the way they had always promised. I had no reason to doubt them. Then came that Friday night, 1 week before I was supposed to drive to Champaign and start my new life. My parents called a family meeting. The tone in my mother's voice when she said we needed to talk made my stomach tighten. We all gathered around the dining table in our small dining room. My mother had cooked meatloaf, Derek's favorite dish, which should have been my first clue that this night was not about me. The air felt heavy, serious. My father cleared his throat and looked at me with an expression I could not quite read. "Your mother and I have something important to discuss with you," he said. His voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something that made me sit up straighter. I looked at Derek, who was sitting across from me, and he had this look on his face, confident, almost smug. I felt my chest tighten. "Derek has an incredible opportunity," my father continued. "He has been working on a business plan for months." Derek leaned forward, launching into his pitch like he was presenting to investors. He talked about a tech startup and app for delivering fast food locally, something called Quick Bite Local. He had investors interested, he said, but he needed seed money to get it off the ground, just $50,000 to start. My heart started pounding. $50,000. That was more than my entire college fund. I looked at my parents, waiting for them to shut this down, to tell Derek he needed to find another way. But instead, my mother reached across the table and put her hand on mine. "Tobias," she said softly, "we have decided to give your college fund to Derek." The room went silent. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. I could not breathe. I stared at her, then at my father, then at Derek, who was leaning back in his chair looking pleased with himself. What I finally managed to say: "But that is for my tuition. School starts in a week." "You got a scholarship, did you not?" my father said. "You are smart. You will figure it out." Derek jumped in, his voice dripping with false brotherly affection. "Come on, little bro. This is for the family. When my business takes off, we will all benefit. You will thank me later." My mother squeezed my hand. "Be proud you are supporting the family, Tobias. This is what family does. We help each other." I pulled my hand away. "But I still need $30,000 for the rest of my expenses. How am I supposed to pay for room and board, for books, for anything?" My father shrugged. "Take out student loans. Get a job. You are resourceful. You will manage." Derek smirked, and in that moment I realized they had already made this decision without me. This meeting was not a discussion. It was an announcement. I sat there staring down at my plate of untouched meatloaf, feeling like I had been erased. Like 4 years of hard work, of sacrifice, of believing in their promises, meant nothing. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I felt betrayed, disposable, like I was just a backup plan they could discard whenever Derek needed something. I did not sleep at all. The next morning I tried to talk to my mother privately. She was washing dishes in the kitchen, her back to me. "Mom, can we talk about this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I am not trying to be selfish, but this does not feel fair." She did not even turn around. "Tobias, the decision is made. Derek needs this more. He needs it more." I repeated, my voice rising. "I have worked for 4 years to get into that school." She finally turned, drying her hands on a dish towel. "Derek is starting a business. That is real. You are just going to school." Her words felt like a slap. Just going to school. As if my education, my dreams, my future were trivial compared to Derek's half-baked startup idea. I tried calling my father at work, but he brushed me off. "I am busy, Tobias. We talked about this. Support your brother." Then he hung up. I sat alone in my room, doing the math in my head. If I took out student loans for all 4 years, I would graduate with over $100,000 in debt. The weight of that number pressed down on my chest. But I made a decision right then. I was still going. I would not let them take this from me. I would figure it out somehow. A week later, I left for college. My parents did not drive me to school. My father had to work, and my mother needed to help Derek prepare for his big launch. So I took a Greyhound bus from my hometown to Champaign, a 5-hour journey, sitting alone with my thoughts. I watched the flat Illinois landscape roll by, feeling a mix of anger, sadness, and determination. When I arrived on campus, I felt completely alone. My roommate was a guy named Garrett, a cheerful kid from the suburbs of Chicago. His parents had driven him to school in a packed SUV, and they spent hours helping him set up the dorm room, hanging posters, arranging furniture, laughing together. Garrett's side of the room looked like a magazine spread. My side had a single suitcase and the bare essentials. "Your folks could not make it?" Garrett asked casually. I forced a smile. They had something important to handle. The first few weeks were brutal. I applied for emergency student loans, which barely covered tuition and room fees. I had no money for textbooks, so I spent hours in the library photocopying chapters, borrowing books on reserve. I signed up for the cheapest meal plan and skipped meals when I needed to save money. I got a work-study job at the campus cafeteria, washing dishes and wiping down tables for 15 hours a week at minimum wage. While other students were going to parties, joining clubs, making friends, I was working, studying, and trying not to think about how much I resented my family. Garrett noticed I was struggling, though. I tried to hide it. "Dude, you are insane," he said one night. "You work, you study constantly. When do you sleep?" "When I can afford to," I replied. I did not tell him the full story. I did not tell anyone. It felt too humiliating to admit that my own parents had chosen my brother over me. Back home, Derek launched Quick Bite Local with great fanfare. 3 months into my first semester, my parents called me for the first time. "Your brother's business is launching," my mother said, excitedly. "We are so proud." "That is great," I said flatly, then made an excuse to hang up. They posted pictures on Facebook, Derek standing in front of a small rented office space looking like a tech mogul. The comments were full of praise. "So proud entrepreneur of the family." Nobody asked how I was doing. Nobody cared that I was eating ramen noodles for dinner and wearing the same 3 shirts on rotation because I could not afford anything else. 6 months passed. I survived my first semester, then my second. I kept my head down, worked hard, and slowly started to find my footing. But then winter break came, and I had to go home. I did not want to, but I had nowhere else to go, and no money for a plane ticket anywhere else. The moment I walked through the door, I could feel the tension. Derek barely spoke. He looked exhausted, defeated. My parents were quieter than usual, whispering to each other in corners. Late one night, I heard Derek on the phone in his room. I was walking past to use the bathroom when I caught fragments of his conversation. "The investors pulled out. We are bleeding money. I do not know how much longer we can keep the office open." I stood frozen in the hallway, my heart pounding. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me just felt sad. The next morning, my last day before heading back to school, my parents called me into the living room. My father looked uncomfortable. Derek was sitting on the couch, pale and drawn. "Derek's business is having some challenges," my father said carefully. "He needs more money to keep it afloat." How much, I asked already, knowing I was not going to like the answer. "Another 30,000, my mother said quietly. I felt the blood drain from my face. That was exactly the amount I needed for my second year of school, the money I was scrambling to figure out how to pay for. "Are you serious?" I said, my voice shaking. "You took my college fund, and now it is gone." Derek looked up at me, his eyes pleading. "It is not gone, Tobias. It is invested. I just need more time to turn things around." Something inside me snapped. "You do not have time," I shouted. "You wasted $50,000 of my money on a failed dream." My mother stood up. "Do not talk to your brother like that." "No," I shot back. "I am done. I have been struggling, eating ramen, working myself to exhaustion, while you two throw money at his disaster." My father tried to interject. "Tobias, family means sacrifice." "Family?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean Derek." "I am not family. I am just the backup plan. I am just the one you can ignore because I am not special enough, not charismatic enough, not Derek." I went upstairs, packed my bag, and walked out. My parents and Derek sat in stunned silence. I did not look back. I took the bus back to school 2 days early, my hands shaking the entire ride. But as the miles passed, I felt something unexpected. Relief. I was done asking them for anything. I was done hoping they would see me. I was on my own now, and somehow that felt better than the alternative. The spring semester of my freshman year became a turning point. I stopped waiting for my family to care. I stopped checking Facebook for updates on Derek's failing business. I stopped hoping my mother would call to ask how I was doing. Instead, I focused entirely on building a life they could not touch. I picked up a second job tutoring math to freshman students, making an extra $15 an hour. On weekends, I worked at an electronics store near campus. Between classes, work-study tutoring, and retail, I was pulling close to 40 hours a week on top of a full course load. It was exhausting. There were nights I fell asleep at my desk, my head on my textbook. But I was surviving. More than that, I was learning something valuable. I was capable. I did not need them. Academically, I kept my GPA at 3.85. I joined a free coding boot camp offered by the university and taught myself Python, Java, and JavaScript through online resources. I spent hours on Coursera and YouTube absorbing everything I could. One of my computer science professors, Professor Helen Grant, noticed my work. She was a woman in her early 50s, sharp and no-nonsense, with a reputation for being tough, but fair. After class one day, she asked me to stay behind. "Your code is clean," she said. "Have you thought about research?" I blinked, caught off guard. Research. She explained she was working on a machine learning project and needed an assistant. It was unpaid, but it would give me hands-on experience and strengthen my resume. I did not hesitate. Yes, absolutely. That research position changed everything. I spent my free time in the lab learning from Professor Grant, working on real problems, building a portfolio of work that went beyond my coursework. Garrett, my roommate, thought I was insane. "Dude, 3 jobs, school, and research. When do you sleep? When I can afford to," I repeated. But the truth was, I did not mind. Every hour I worked, every skill I gained was proof that I was building something real. I stopped checking social media entirely. I did not care what Derek was doing. I did not care if my parents noticed my absence. It did not matter anymore. That summer after my freshman year, I applied to internships at tech companies. I sent out 50 applications, got 10 responses, and landed an offer from a small startup in Chicago. It was a paid internship, $20 an hour, and I would be coding for 3 months straight. I moved to Chicago, shared a tiny apartment with 3 other interns, and threw myself into the work. The CEO of the startup, a guy named Jordan Pierce in his early 30s, was impressed with what I produced. "You are still in school?" he asked one day, looking over a feature I had built. "This is senior-level work. When you graduate, come work for us full-time." I nodded, trying to keep my face neutral, but inside I was soaring. By the end of that summer, I had saved nearly $7,000. My second year of college, I kept working part-time remotely for Jordan's startup, 10 hours a week. It gave me a steady income and kept my skills sharp. I did not need to take out more student loans for that year. For the first time since my family betrayed me, I felt like I was breathing. I heard through the grapevine, through mutual acquaintances back home, that Derek had shut down his business after a year and a half. He had moved back in with our parents and was working at Walmart. My parents had gone silent on social media. There were no more proud posts, no more bragging. Part of me waited to feel something, satisfaction, vindication something. But I just felt empty. They were not part of my life anymore. Their failures were not my victories. Junior year, I got promoted to a leadership role in Professor Grant's research project. We published a paper together at a small conference, and it went on my resume. That summer, I interned at a larger tech firm in San Francisco, making $35 an hour, plus a housing stipend. I lived in a cramped apartment with 2 roommates, but I was in San Francisco, working for a company I had only dreamed about. I learned more in those 3 months than I had in 2 years of classes. When I returned for my senior year, I had 2 job offers waiting before I even graduated. Jordan's startup offered me $75,000 a year. A larger tech firm in Seattle offered me $95,000. I chose Seattle. It was far from home, far from my family, and that felt right. I wanted to start completely fresh somewhere. Nobody knew my story. Graduation day came in May. I walked across that stage with a 3.87 GPA and honors. Garrett was there cheering louder than anyone. Professor Grant was there clapping with genuine pride. My parents were not. I had sent them an invitation more out of obligation than hope. They never responded. For a moment, standing there with my diploma, I felt a pang of sadness. But then I looked out at Garrett and Professor Grant, at the friends I had made, the mentors who had believed in me, and I realized something. I had my real family right here. A year after graduation, I was living in Seattle working for the tech firm. My base salary was $95,000, but with bonuses and stock options, my first year total compensation hit $120,000. I paid off my student loans aggressively. Within the first year, determined to be free of that debt. I rented a small apartment with a view of Puget Sound. It was not huge, but it was mine. I decorated it the way I wanted, filled it with books and plants, made it a space that felt like home. I cooked my own meals, went to the gym 3 times a week, spent weekends hiking in the mountains. My life was stable, peaceful, and entirely my own. One Friday evening, after a long week at work, I was in my kitchen making dinner. I had taught myself to cook over the years, finding it meditative, a way to unwind. My phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize, but the area code was from back home. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello." There was a pause, then a voice I had not heard in over a year. "Tobias, it is Mom." I stopped stirring the pan on the stove. My heart started pounding, not with excitement, but with a dull, familiar ache. "How are you?" she asked, her voice tired, older than I remembered. "We have not heard from you in so long." "I am fine," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "What do you need?" There was a long pause. "I saw your LinkedIn," she said quietly. "You are doing well." I had updated my LinkedIn with my job and accomplishments, but I had never connected with my family on there. The fact that she had searched for me, looked me up, felt invasive. "Your father and we wanted to reach out. Derek is struggling. He has been depressed since the business failed." I closed my eyes, leaning against the counter. Here it was. The real reason for the call. "We were wondering," she continued, "if maybe you could help him, maybe get him an interview at your company." The audacity of it hit me like a wave. "Help him," I said, my voice sharp. "Where were you when I needed help?" "Tobias, we are family." "No," I interrupted. "You chose who your family was 5 years ago. You made Derek the priority. I was just the backup, the one who did not matter." "We made a mistake," she said, and I could hear her voice breaking. "We are sorry." I appreciated the apology. I did. "But sorry does not give me back the nights I went to bed hungry," I said quietly. "Sorry does not erase the student loans I had to take out. Sorry does not replace the graduation you did not attend." There was silence on the other end, then the sound of quiet crying. "I have built my life without you," I continued. "I am not angry anymore, but I am also not your solution. Derek made his choices. You made yours. Now you all have to live with them." "Can we at least talk?" she asked, her voice pleading. "Meet sometime," maybe I said. "Someday, but not now. I need more time." I hung up and stood there in my kitchen, the phone still in my hand. I waited for the anger to come, the resentment, the old bitterness. But it did not. I just felt calm. I did not hate them. I had stopped hating them a long time ago. I just did not need them anymore. That realization was freeing in a way I had not expected. I walked out onto my balcony and watched the sunset over Puget Sound, the sky turning shades of orange and pink. I thought about the past 5 years, about the boy who had sat at that dining table, devastated and betrayed. He had been so hurt, so lost. But somewhere along the way he had become someone else, someone stronger, someone who did not define himself by their rejection. I thought about the nights I had gone to bed hungry, the times I had worked until my body ached, the moments I had felt so alone I thought I might break. And I realized those moments had not destroyed me. They had forged me into someone I was proud to be. I had found my own family in Garrett, who still called me every week just to check in Professor Grant, who had believed in me when I needed it most, in my colleagues, in my friends, in the life I had built with my own 2 hands. Family is not just about blood, I thought. It is about who shows up when you need them. It is about who believes in you even when you do not believe in yourself. Being forced to stand alone had taught me that I was stronger than I ever thought possible. Independence was not a punishment. It was a gift. Success, I realized, is not about proving people wrong. It is about proving yourself right. I had not built this life to rub it in my family's face. I had built it because I wanted to live on my own terms, free from their expectations, their disappointments, their choices. And forgiveness, I understood now, does not mean forgetting. It means freeing yourself from the weight of bitterness. I forgave them not because they deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Sometimes the people who are supposed to lift you up end up being the ones who push you down. But here is what I learned. When they let go, you do not fall. You fly. I do not know if I will ever fully reconcile with my parents or Derek. Maybe one day, maybe not. What I do know is this. I am not the kid begging for their approval anymore. I am the man who built a life they could not take away. And that is worth more than any college fund ever could be. So let me ask you this. Have you ever had to choose between holding on to family and choosing yourself? Have you ever been forced to build something from nothing when the people you trusted let you down? Drop your story in the comments. I would love to hear it. And if this resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share this with someone who needs to hear that they are stronger than they think. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that sometimes the greatest gift life gives you is the chance to prove to yourself just how capable you really are. Take care of yourselves out there, and remember your worth is not determined by who believes in you. It is determined by what you build when nobody is watching.